Hi guys, how's it going? I'm super emotional today because I am such a fan of God's love for us, and I'm in awe. I'm in awe, and I just started writing in my journal. I was writing this beautiful handmade journal that a friend made where I have a little picture of me when I was a kid. And I was like, you know what, I need to share this on the blog. It's too important not to share it. And I'm in Argentina, and I'm with my family. I'm so happy to be here. It's the first time that I've ever purchased a ticket home 5 days before the flight. You know, that's how desperate I was for coming home to my family. And the reason I'm crying is I'm just in awe of how God works, especially when you pray. It's been two, crazy days here. My Uncle Alex was here, and you're just going to eat, having fun, moving, doing things. And then I'm like, I need my quiet time. So I sat down on the couch and I started reading the Bible. I'm reading John 6. John 6 is about Jesus's initiation into ministry. And ministry for Jesus has to do with his mother at the wedding in Canaan saying, Jesus, we've run out of wine. And he says to his mother, woman, my time is not come yet. And the commentary I'm reading is that the fact that he doesn't call her mom when he says woman, it already starts to plan the separation of Jesus, as son of Joseph and Mary, and Jesus as God. And this is going to be his first miracle, the one that is basically initiating his time on this earth. And then you have the miracle at the waters of Bethsaida. I'm going to actually read this because I think it's pretty incredible that we have the law of man, the interpretations of, at this time, Jewish persecuting him because he had performed the miracle of healing the cripple who was at these baths. And I think that it's incredible to see how a law, do not work on Sabbath, is more important than considering the incredible miracle he did, which was healing this man who had been going for years. He was always there at this place, right, in the waters in Jerusalem. So, he does this miracle, and the Jews ask the man, who is this fellow who told you to pick up your mat and walk? The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. And I'm going to go back and tell you what he actually said to the cripple, right? When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat and walk. At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was a Sabbath. And so the Jews said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath. The laws forbid you to carry your mat. So the man who was healed had no idea who was Jesus, right? But later, Jesus finds him in the temple and says, see, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. I'm reading in the commentary that the sin that was probably the reason why he was crippled was something called dissipation, and that means, I don't even know what dissipation meant. Overindulgence in sensual pleasure, dissipated living. Isn't that interesting, right? The fact that we sin and we know we sin, for me as a Christian, is like, why would I do that? Why would I sin against God? But back when I wasn't a Christian and I was overindulging, I was a dissipation, I wasn't aware of God. So technically it wasn't wrong. But in my deep down, I knew that I was not living in accordance to God's ways. Because it hurts, because it sucks. I don't know. God's commandments are here to protect us, Why does it say do not kill? Why does it say do not have adulterous affairs with the wife of your friend, for your brother? These are all laws put into place by God to protect us. But we as humans, we're too weak. We can't. We want to live our own life. We want to be free. God, that's not for me. And so I think this is an incredible example. But I want to get to the point why I'm very sensitive today. I'm thinking that I don't have the microphone, and you will hear better once I have my microphone. So let me pause. Okay, we're back. I hope this is better. Set change, because we have a painting from the series of jazz, which I haven't been able to show you yet. And I definitely will, because this painting here at my parents' is the only abstract one from the whole series. So I'll show it to you better later. But basically, you see it's the silhouette of the guy playing jazz, while the other ones are a little bit more representative. They were actually portraits of Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker. I'll show you guys later. Okay, I'm losing my voice. Okay, it's gonna be fine. But basically, why I'm so emotional is I'm like, I need to read my Bible. I need to have some quiet time. When things go too quickly, I feel outside of myself, and before, that would be me collapsing, me having sleepless nights. Before Jesus, right? I'm talking about back when I wasn't a Christian. It would just spiral, and then I'd be very anxious, very nervous. I'd have very intrusive thoughts, like paranoia. And now, when I know I'm getting to a place where I'm overstimulated, I'm like, I need to have my quiet time. So that starts with me starting to write. And I have my computer, so I'm writing, that's what I recommend. Free thought, everything that's happening to you as a journal. And I pray at the end, and I'm like, Lord, please direct me in what I'm going to read in the Bible today. And wouldn't you know, I'm on chapter 5 of John, and I'm reading the commentary about this man and the law. And I left Buenos Aires so that I could visit my family, because the IVF was taking, it's taking forever. And meanwhile, life goes by, and it's been 6 months. I haven't been able to. Over a year, I've wanted to see my family, and I'm like doing the IVF and the appointments, and I'm like, all of a sudden they're like, look, your thyroid level is too high for the process. I need you to have an appointment with an endocrinologist. So I'm like, okay, and I call, and I don't have an appointment for another month, and I'm like, okay, I'm leaving, like I probably could find one in Argentina faster than the times and the wait, of medicine. It's like you gotta wait. Meanwhile, here I am, like living life, being with Sebas, hi baby, being with, what you gotta do, but my life is revolving around IVF, and it's crazy, but I know that this is the way of many women, and it's a struggle. So on the plane, I found a beautiful family, a couple who adopted children. She had been through IVF 10 cycles back in the 80s or 90s, and she ended up adopting. And I'm like, I've only been through one cycle, and I'm through the ringer. It's not that I can't do it again. Of course I can do it again. It's, the injections and everything. It's not fun, but it's the times, and, the doctor and the wait, and seeing all the women who are half super depressed in the waiting room because we're going through this, and half are pregnant and happy with their babies. So you're like, you go from happiness for them to resentment really quickly because you're waiting for an hour for the doctor. And I'm like, isn't this crazy? And I want to share this with you because as my English listeners, I don't know where you're looking at this from. And I know that in the US, IVF struggles can cost women up to, people pay $40K to be a mom, and it might not even work. So the fact that France and the social healthcare system includes 3 to 4 intents of this is a blessing from the Lord. I am so thankful to God because he kept us in France because we wanted to be in the US, and he put so many stopping blocks from that to happening. I will tell you one day. But the fact that we're in France and able to benefit from that. And, here I did this prayer a couple minutes ago, and all of a sudden my dad calls me like, Barbara, come up here. Hi, Dad. And his good colleague, a doctor, has another colleague who's an endocrinologist who will see us in 3 days. It's an incredible person. I would have never been able to find this doctor. In fact, I found one, and my dad's like, cancel it. You can't go to doctors that are not recommended. I'm like, but Dad, this guy's never going to see us. He's too important. And that's why I was crying. I was crying because God is very good. And God, He knows what we need, even before we need it. And He sets up everything for us who believe. And my dad, you're a block. You're a beautiful piece of that puzzle. Even if you don't believe, you still are being used by God for my benefit. And I'm being used by God for your benefit. Okay, this is turning into a fun party. Oh man, I think it's very healthy to cry. I haven't cried in so long. I'm crying because I'm so emotional, I'm so happy. I'm grateful. These are happy tears. I'm just, God is so good. And when you don't know that God is good, it's easy to fall into the complaining, looking on the other side of the greener grass and going, well, you know what, I want that. We were talking about that with some ladies on the airplane, right? With this woman and then this other woman. She's like, we always want what we don't have. And then, it's as simple as a woman has curly hair and she wants straight hair, and the lady with straight hair and frizz, she wants the curly hair. It's as simple as that, and then it goes as deep as this woman is a mother, and I want to be a mother, and I can't. And that woman is looking at me going, wow, she's married. I wish I was married. I'm raising my own kid by myself. God gives us exactly what we're ready to handle at the right time. And get God's times, His timings are not ours. God's time doesn't exist as our minutes and our seconds exist. The fact that we're not patient enough. And I think back to Genesis. I think back to Abraham and Sarah. He promised Abraham that they would have children. And here Sarah was like, well, I'm not getting any younger. I'm 90 years old. Like, what are you waiting for? And so what did she do? She got in God's way. And she had Hagar have sex with Abraham, and that's pretty much the beginning of another episode of sin, because that gave the door open to all of what Muslim is, and I can go into that another time. But basically, the sons that were born from Hagar were going to go create the rest of the. The point being here is Abraham and Sarah got Isaac. And Isaac was the answer to prayer. But she still got in his way. And that's what I'm trying not to do. I'm like, I don't want to get in your way, Lord. Like, I really, really prayed about, is IVF okay for a Christian believer? Because I'm like, well, God can give you children naturally. And if He doesn't, why am I going to look for IVF? And it took me forever to understand and get God's blessing that medicine and modern medicine with doctors are blessing families, and it's my extreme blessing and benediction that I live in this time when I can be blessed by IVF. So whether it works out or it doesn't, that's up to God. But I'm laughing because our doctor, I asked him a question like, well, if we had implanted our embryo directly instead of it being frozen, and our embryo did not unfreeze, so that was our only embryo, and unfortunately we have to redo our cycle. And he goes, I'm like, so had we implanted it instead of freezing it, and blah blah blah. And he goes, only God knows. I love that. I'm like, even doctors, even critical scientific thinkers can leave something as beautiful as life to God. We can't take away anything from God just because we think we are smarter. We can help God. We can be God's hands, like a surgeon. He can be God's hands. But life, at the end of the day, if a heart beats, that's all God. And it's really hard. It's really hard to trust Him with this. I mean, I do, but sometimes I should say sorry that I don't. Like, what am I not doing? What am I missing that I can't become a mother? What do I have to eat better? And you can put yourself through hell by asking those questions, because I believe in God's miracles. I believe that He can give me children if He wants. And that's huge, because all the promises of the Bible, all the promises were fulfilled. The biggest one being Jesus' birth. In all of the Old Testament, it points to Jesus, and He came and He fulfilled prophecy by the most extreme miracle that you have to believe in order to be a Christian. It is, was He born from God, died and resurrected? That's hard to believe. I can tell you that it's hard to believe. But I've seen so many miracles in the short time that I've been a Christian that, oh man, I can't wait to tell you one of the miracles, but that's for another episode. To tell you the truth, if I am able to be a mom, that'll be the biggest miracle I've ever seen. But anyway, I do trust God, and I will not be sad if I can't be a mother naturally. It'll be heartbreaking, but I've accepted that I want God's plan for my life. And God knows what He's doing. So I hope that's hopeful. I hope that this wasn't too much of a bummer. I cannot wait to show you Buenos Aires and this beautiful city in the month of March. It's one of the most awesome times to be here because of the weather, and to just give you hope as I'm getting it myself, and show you that it's not a perfect road. In fact, being a Christian sometimes is harder, because the Bible says you have to take up your cross, lose your life, take up your cross and walk with Jesus. And that decision is sometimes harder than negating Him like Peter did. Peter was a disciple, and yet Jesus said, you will deny me 3 times. He knew it. As He knew that He would be betrayed, He would be betrayed by, what's his name? Good thing, his name isn't one of the other disciples. But yeah, gosh damn it. Oh my gosh, isn't this cool? All of a sudden I go like this on my Bible, and it opens up to the page that I need to talk to you about. That's only God, right? I mean, others will call that a coincidence, but God knows I'm looking for this information now. Paul opposes Peter in Galatians 2:11. When Peter came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he was clearly in the wrong. Sorry, that's Paul opposing Peter. Anyways, it was Judas. Judas, he knew he was going to be betrayed, and yet Peter's like, no, how would I ever betray you later, you know? And he dies. People ask, and Peter goes, no, I don't know who he is. I'm talking about your own apostles, you know? Which says a lot to me. Who can we really trust? Family and God. And that's why it hurts so much when we're betrayed, because it's inconceivable to us. But thank God there's forgiveness, and God's always there to pick us up when we're down, when we're hurting. And I'm going to end the video here. I am going to show you my paintings. So, because I don't get a chance to show you all this work that is not available to me because it's at my parents' house. And I'll talk a little bit about all the series. And if you want to see more, you can go to my website to the part of art and series. And I'm looking to upload more about each series. For example, when I exhibited, if there's photos available or the text that accompanied the curation, because that's really cool stuff, like when you can read more about it from, you know, the mouth of someone who wrote about art. So let's go look at some art. So here you're seeing a beautiful work from when I was only 15. I was studying with Inés Oviedo, and we were doing one painting after the other. I was with her for quite a few years, and the daffodils and the flowers that I'm going to show you are all of the paintings that I worked on with her. And these are prints. You may have seen it from my Morocco series. Here's another watercolor study from a photograph of Doisneau, I think a French photograph. It was black and white, and I made one of my first watercolors, this one. Okay, and then we have this one I was telling you about, which I love, and I will, you can see in the description box below all the different paintings from that series, so you can see the difference between, you know, this very abstract painting. And then that's one of my sculptures, actually. The only one I have in cement. I'll show you some other ones too. Here's one of the ones from, I think I made this after, but it's, I don't know what year I made this in, probably with Inés Oviedo, but as you can see, photograph of a mother and child, and it's from a photograph in black and white, I suppose, because I didn't put too much color in. The only colors are this Naples yellow, and then the blues are the shadows. Okay, and then here we have another one from this is the original from the Jazz series. And as you can see, it's a father and son, and they were marching through New Orleans, and there's actually another person on the back, but I decided to make this as if it was like they were in heaven or something, like they're in the sky, because I wanted to portray the difference between these different, very famous musicians in the series, and then the ones that are never going to be famous, but they're incredible as well, and they're underground. So that's the idea of this one. And here we have some more. This one's big. It's actually like life-size because my teacher and her husband, back when I used to do yoga, I decided to do a whole series, but this one is like them in the desert, and there's always like people posing in spaces of nature. I'll show you some of the ones another time. And then one of my favorite. This is Nicanor. Look at Nicanor. Oh my gosh. This is after I came back from probably Colombia, and I was so inspired by the street vendors of fruits, because I was seeing all these cool fruits, like the star fruit, you know, and the juices were incredible. So that one's one of my favorites. Look at this. This is you, baby. This is Sebastian. And he had a picture where he was doing this pose in Nepal, right, Seb? You can put an answer in the description box, because I think that's what the photo was. And I just really loved making this one, because look how abstract all the colors, you know? This is like I guess like a sky. Yeah, definitely different from the picture, but that's my interpretation. Look at him. Oh my gosh, you are so young. All right, and then here we have, let's see what we have here. We have this one, which is also a 3-part series of women, like, you know, stretching. That is a print of the painting you saw in my house, which is like from the Tango series. This, my dad loved this one. This is a picture of Jorge Luis Borges, our famous Argentine writer, right when he was blind. And I really like making this portrait because it was for an exhibition of Jorge Luis Borges, and I love how you can see here the texture of the oil and the backgrounds of the acrylics. Okay, and these two, okay, I'm gonna die. These two are from the Doisneau photographs, the black and white photographs of war, post-war, or during the war in France. And you see this little girl. This is when I was with Inés Oviedo. There's like a James Dean kind of guy, like the kids, very hungry children in the streets of Paris. And here's some of my first few paintings, these ones. Then came this. And my first ever painting with Inés Oviedo. This is super exciting. I must have been 11 or 12 years old when I made this. Well, I hope you liked this little tour of my gallery. It's called Barbara's Gallery. No, I'm just kidding. My parents love having people over and showing my paintings. I've actually sold quite a few paintings from this living room, so it's not a bad technique. No, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm so happy you sat through this and listened to my spiel. You listened to my you listen to me do self-therapy, right? And that's always good. I mean, I'm just a weirdo that does it on YouTube for who knows who to see it. But if you did see it and you are here, please leave a comment, subscribe, you know, all the good stuff, so that I will keep doing this and I know where you're from. It's very exciting when the people that I follow, they ask, where's everyone from? And you know, you got countries, cities that they would never imagine that we're watching our favorite creators from. So even if this video is just for my husband, Sebi, or my daddy, and my Aunt Ruthie, and my cousin Julie, it's been good. You know what I mean? Like, I can't see them and I can't live with them, so this is my way of showing love and being able to have great conversations, even though I'm the only one talking, I guess. But I hope that you enjoyed this, and yeah, I'm gonna see you very soon. I might not just post once a week. I might post a little bit more. We'll see. Love you. Thank you for being here.
Somos la copa y el vino, tú y yo vamos juntos desde que nos vimos. Subimos, bajamos, lloramos, reímos. Es que contigo, mi amor, todo me sabe mejor.